Welcome to Clienting, your place to get information about legal marketing and client development. Welcome to episode number 6 of Clienting. This episode will focus on the secrets to marketing and automating your law practice. I'm Kelly Street, Director of Marketing at Attorney Sync.
And I'm Gyi Sakalakis, one of the founders of Attorney Sync.
And today we have joining us as our guest for today's podcast, David Bitton, CEO of Practice Panther. David, can you tell our listeners a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. I've known Gyi for years, so excited to be speaking with you guys. So my background, where do I start? I guess I grew up in New York my whole life, and I moved to Miami 15 years ago in 2002, loving it ever since. I've always been obsessed with computers, and lately my newest obsession is on automation. So my wife can tell you that I love automating my life, and because I love automating my life, my main goal is to help attorneys automate their lives and their firms as well.
Well, that sounds pretty great.
Was that an automated recording?
I probably should have done that. Just press play. You're right.
David, I know we're going to get to see you at Techshow, and we are putting this episode just in advance of Techshow so that we can share it with everyone, because you have a secret that you have been waiting on, a special project. So can you tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is actually going to be the exclusive announcement, I guess. We haven't announced it yet, so you're the first ones to know about it. So we've been working on a book for, I would say, 9 months now with 15 legal experts in the industry. And Gyi is actually one of the experts in the book because I value his feedback and advice and opinion so much. He knows so much about automating law firms and marketing and SEO. So we've gathered 15 experts to write a book on how to start, market, and automate your law firm.
David, you're too kind, but I appreciate the nod. And I'm very excited about this project, and kudos to you for undertaking books. That's a big project. And folks, listeners, if you're at Techshow or just in Chicago next week, don't hesitate to reach out to us because, again, we live and eat and breathe and sleep this stuff. And so if you have follow-up questions from this podcast or any others, please don't hesitate to reach out. We look forward to seeing everybody at Techshow. It's always a great time.
And one thing to add there, Gyi, is if you are at Techshow, we will have some copies to give away for free. So feel free to come by the booth and grab a copy. And I guess I might as well announce it now. For all the listeners, if you can't make it to Techshow, just shoot me an email. My email is david@practicepanther.com. Send me your address, and I will send you a copy of the book as soon as it's published.
Free books! I'm going to get my free book.
You're going to get like 500 free books.
Perfect.
So if you can't tell, Secrets to Marketing and Automating Your Law Practice, that's where he came up with the title of this episode. That's the title of the book. Let's get into it. David, what are the secrets? How does someone start their own firm? Who should start a firm? Let's dive right in.
So, wow, a lot of secrets that we won't have time to cover today, but I guess who should start their own firms? Really, it's anyone who wants more freedom or challenges. Maybe you've worked for a few law firms already and you say, hey, I can do this better than them. And you've been taking notes on the side. What are they doing to get clients? How will I get clients? So really, if you have an itch to becoming your own business owner, you should start a firm, most likely. I do not recommend starting a firm if you have not done research, you have not put together a solid business plan, you have not put together a marketing plan, you have no idea how you're going to get clients. I do not recommend that. And I always tell friends, you should never quit your day job without a plan ready to go.
That's great advice. So David, you want to start your own firm. You've got the plan in place. How do you go about launching that new firm?
Okay, so the first thing you obviously have to do is open up an LLC, incorporate your company, hang your shingle. And once you do that, get an EIN number, which is free online. That's one of the things I made a mistake of, paying a website $200 when a lot of these things are free. Opening up a business bank account, business credit card, get Quickbooks for accounting. Obviously, get a practice management software to manage your clients and cases. When you start, you don't want to get crazy with expenses and overhead. You don't need an office yet. You could have a virtual office. You could work from home. You could work from anywhere. Or if you ever have to meet clients, you can rent a conference room somewhere. So you don't need to go crazy with expenses. Now, like you said, build the business plan, get the marketing plan in place, speak to consultants and experts like Gyi, get ideas, advice, just build this plan out. Now, one of the best things you can do if you're already working at a firm and you have a lot of cases you're working on, you want to find out if you get to take those cases and clients and money with you if you leave. And if you can do that, you should probably have a few months of revenue already lined up.
So after launching and you've got everything going, what are you seeing that the more successful law firms are doing to retain that growth and to get even bigger and better over time?
Okay, so I had a friend of mine, his name was Adam Mate, and he started his firm 5 years ago. And I asked him, how come you were never using these softwares or processes? He said, when I started, I was cheap, just starting as cheap as possible. I didn't take time to do all this. And now that I'm more successful, it's such a hassle. So before you get busy, focus as much time as you can on building really good processes and procedures. So when you do grow, when you do hire someone, you don't need to train anyone. Say, hey, just read these processes, read this procedure that I've already built. How do you call a client back? How do you send a retainer agreement? How do you collect payments? How do you bill time? How do you do all these things? You have to build these processes. So every minute planning will save you so much time in training someone else later on. Now, as you're launching, there's a great author in the book, Barbara Leach, and she recommends hosting a launch party, getting the word out, getting the buzz out, emailing all your friends, all your connections, all your network, other attorneys, everyone you went to law school with, sending an email, you're launching, this is your firm, this is what you're going to do, and this is what you can help with.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, the this idea of kind of like thinking about it almost even like, software, what they would do during a launch party. But that's the part that I think that a lot of lawyers, especially when they're just getting started, they tend to tell friends, but they don't concentrate and build the excitement up so that there's like this, there's a real anticipation of the firm starting. And I love the idea of a launch party. Again, something you can do probably pretty affordably and leverage those people in your, get the word out through people that already know, like, and trust you, which are going to tend to be friends, family members, people you went to law school with. Ideally, another thing that I always tell people, whether you're starting your own firm or just entering the practice of law in general, is get a mentor. But those types of people, like having a launch party like that is such a great idea to be able to start to build up the buzz around your practice. Because again, I'm with you. I think the idea of writing processes is great. I think the idea of taking an inventory of what kind of software you need is super important. But at the end of the day, none of that stuff's going to matter if you can't start to build relationships with people that can become clients, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Correct. And I'll just add to that. So even for listeners that already have their own law firms that feel like, oh, I can't do a launch party, I've already launched, that's okay. You should have a yearly party, an annual holiday party, or around a different date, maybe your annual party from the day you launched, so an annual event just to bring people together to get everyone to network as well with each other.
Love that idea.
It's a great idea. So I know one of the big concerns, especially for solo and small or new firms, is how do you afford to do things like this? How can you grow your firm but not empty out your bank account every single month?
Yeah, so that's a good one. So in the early days, yes, you do have to be as frugal as possible and watch every dollar as possible. So number one, you don't need an office. That's the biggest expense. Number two, there's a lot of good free softwares out there, like ours, for example, that will give you free trials as long as you only have 3 clients or 3 cases. And as you grow, then you'll grow with those software companies, obviously. So that's another great example. I mean, you don't need to go all out on getting crazy fancy stationery. People spend a lot of money on branding and this in the very beginning before they have clients. So I would really recommend growing the firm as natural and organic as possible. I know, Gyi, you can probably speak a lot about this with organic SEO and blogging. So
yeah, I think that's right. I'm totally with you on that. Early on, most of your business is likely to be word of mouth referrals and relationships that you've you had before you even launched your firm. But like David, as you were mentioning, there's a lot of technology solutions. Let's talk about some of those. So what do you usually recommend? I mean, an easy one that you need to think about is email, right? What are your thoughts on email service providers, email marketing, email and practice management? What have you seen working best?
I love email. I think every marketer generally loves email marketing because it always keeps you top of mind. So if a consumer reaches out to you to hire you, are you following up with them? Are you sending them good quality content? You always want to be providing high quality content, giving value, not just promoting yourself, So if you practice family law, send emails out how to work things out, why mediation is better, how to split assets, just send good feedback, even if they haven't hired you. Because guess what? When they keep getting these automatic emails from you with good value, they eventually will hire you down the road or refer you if they went with someone else. So email marketing is very important. I love MailChimp. I don't know what you guys recommend, but I love MailChimp. It's super easy, very simple. And they have what they call an automation feature where you set it up once and forget about it. So you can set a chain of 5 email campaigns. And anytime you add someone to MailChimp, it will automatically send the emails out a month apart, for example.
MailChimp, I think, even has a free version up to a certain amount of contacts. So if you're brand new, MailChimp's even free. And then I think as you get into like even thousands of contacts, you're talking about like $30 a month. So in terms of affordability, I think MailChimp makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I wanted to know, David, do you have an opinion on how often you should be sending emails? Because Gyi, I know we go back and forth on this a little bit and wondering if you're emailing people too much and how much is too much. Do you have a recommendation or something you found that works?
Yeah, so you definitely don't want to overdo it because they're going to unsubscribe and they won't enjoy it. But I think the bigger question becomes, how much value are you providing in those emails? If every email, they're opening every single email up and they love it, you're providing amazing value and they want your emails. But for me, I generally think that when someone contacts you at the law firm and they're still deciding whether to hire you, you could be a little bit more aggressive in the beginning by sending an email out right away, maybe 5 days later, maybe then 2 weeks later, 3 and 4 weeks later. And then after a month, if they haven't hired you, you can probably slow it down and do once a month, once every 2 months going forward.
Awesome. So on that note of opening, do you have a benchmark for yourself or your company or that you suggest on your click-through or your open rates where you can decide what that line is for whether people are getting value or not?
Yes. So you definitely want to monitor 2 or 3 different numbers in your email marketing. Number one, your open rate. Your open rate will tell you 2 things. Do they want to hear from you? And is your subject line good? So I know Gyi loves this. We could talk about A/B testing forever, but what A/B testing is you have 2 different versions of your email or your subject of the email. One version can say, why you should hire me. Another version can say, hi, it's David, And you'll probably realize that the hi, it's David will get even more open. So you always want to be testing that email subject line. Then the next thing you want to look at is your click-through rate. How many people are clicking in the actual email to go to a link back to your website? And then lastly, I think the most important is your unsubscribe rate. And this is a great question to tie back into your last one. If you notice that a lot of people are unsubscribing on your 3rd email in week 2, push that email back a little bit longer or change the content of that email.
Yeah, great points. And we'll add to the show notes links from MailChimp's knowledge base because they cover a lot of this stuff and very useful and good metrics to be tracking. My big thing too, especially in email and the context of automating, and this can apply to, I think, some of the other automation areas that we'll talk about, is authenticity, right? The biggest challenge is to make your automation seem not automated, right? And so we've found that everybody gets very excited about images and email newsletters and all these different bells and whistles that you can put in email. But for lawyers, depending on how you're generating your list, if you're building lists of former clients, if you're building lists of professional colleagues, the people that the people that are likely to refer you business tend to prefer just to have an authentic email from you versus something that's got all of this imagery and fanciness to it. And so we've found that even in MailChimp, just using the most basic simple text template. So even though it's connected to an automation, I think automations are great, setting up triggers on certain holidays or milestones or people's birthdays. really fantastic, takes a lot of the heavy lifting of follow-up with your contacts off your hands, but focus on the authenticity. Don't try to hammer people with these marketing messages that they might expect from a different kind of business. A law firm working with lawyers, for most of these practice areas, it's a personal relationship. Your audience is going to tend to prefer to get an email that comes from you as the lawyer, not the firm, doesn't have a lot of the fanciness to it, and is tied back to something that, as David was mentioning, whether it's something valuable, whether it's just checking in, whether it's just seeing how you're doing, and then use that feedback that David was talking about in terms of metrics and open rates, unsubscribe, spam reports to shape your strategy moving forward. But the big thing for me, and I think this is a theme that runs through all this automation stuff, is you've got to make it authentic. If it feels like it's automated, people don't want to engage with it. It's the same thing on social media. If your social media feels like it's automated, people are going to be less likely to engage with it.
Gyi, I wish I would have spoken to you about this like a year ago, because we literally spent thousands of dollars on designers and developing beautiful email campaigns with fancy images. And then one day I read something somewhere that was like, oh, just try a personal text-based email. And the reply rates went up the roof. Unsubscribe rates went down. Everything just improved by a simple text-based email. It was incredible.
That's great feedback. I'm glad you had that experience.
Yeah, that's a good reminder for people like me who tend to be a little over creative. And I tend to put a little too much effort into making things look pretty when they could probably work better if I just keep it simple.
Yeah, but what? I think there's a place for that stuff too. To me, the thing that I keep coming back to is it's tying the messaging back to like what the audience asked to get. So, in the context of just kind of talking about Attorney Sync, when people that subscribe to get, a newsletter from us or a free guide, like go crazy with your creativity there, right? Because they want that stuff. But, if you're sending somebody like a, happy birthday or happy 4th of July or a follow-up kind of email, that's where I think that sometimes people, they cross their wires and they start sending their email newsletter content to that list. And that's where you start to lose people. So I think both work. It's just a matter of tying it back to, always remembering what they signed up for, what they want.
I agree.
We talked about secrets to marketing. We talked a little bit getting into automation. I want to know more about the automating thing because I have to admit, I'm not very good at automating myself. I use a handwritten journal still. I tend to have 3 different places that I keep the information that I need. I need help streamlining. So how do you suggest people go about automating, David?
So, it's funny. One of our customers, her name is Asta Madan. She asked me a few weeks ago, David, you speak to thousands of successful attorneys. What are the most successful ones doing? What's their best workflow? What's their best automation tactic? So I realized that we have this information, but we don't really share it. So I think it's probably one of the first times we're sharing it. So automating your law firm is all about having a really good workflow and process and procedure from intake to billing to after. So the first step when you're talking to a new potential client is to get information from them, like a questionnaire or an intake form. So instead of doing it yourself, you should, number one, email them an intake form, put it on your website, or if you have an office and they come into your office, hand them an iPad with the intake form. Think about the client experience. So cool, so modern, so innovative. An iPad, so fancy. So once they fill out all the information on the intake form, you're reducing manual data entry and reducing human problems, and all the data goes straight into your software. Now, once it's in the software, all you need to do to generate a retainer agreement or a contract or any document is press one click, because that's document automation, document generation. So think about this flow as a client. They come into your office, you give them an iPad, you fill out the form, 5 seconds later, the paralegal's already printing a retainer agreement. You're like, wow, this is amazing. And the paralegal or the attorney is going to say, yes, we automate as much as possible here, which is why we work really fast. So you will not have to waste a lot of time or money with us. Now, once the retainer agreement is signed, everything is paid, you can send out invoices once a month in one click of a button. Generate invoice, send invoice, and then the worst part is collecting the money from the clients. So you can even automate your invoice payment reminders by email, So they'll get emails every week to pay your bill.
I love that you said intake form and having that online, because I went to a new dentist a couple weeks ago and they emailed me all of the 10 pages of forms I had to fill out. Of course, I forgot to fill them out. I got to my appointment and she was like, "Oh, do you have your forms?" Nope, forgot. Well, then I had to spend 20 minutes sitting there filling out these paper forms. My handwriting's getting terrible. You can't read it anymore. I'm getting cramps in my hand. And it was not fun.
Yep.
So if that had been available to me online, it would have been so much easier.
Yep.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I mean, and this, I think that these kind of stories have come up in a lot of conversations. I think, in fact, some of the other either podcasts or webinars we've done recently. And tying it back to client development, the thing that lawyers don't realize oftentimes, they set up these automations or they don't ask the potential client or their client or somebody else that they're communicating with, how they actually prefer to interact with the firm. And so again, it's so important that when you have these automation triggers set up, that you first get a sense of what the client or potential client wants. Some of the examples that David used, when you're doing intake, if the potential client prefers like, "Hey, I'm busy, I don't have time to come in. Can you send me this stuff via email? Do you have something that's got a secure document signing online?" That's awesome. I can tell you, even from my own experiences practicing, people will call, you have a conversation with them, you set an appointment, and they blow the appointment. People get busy, they got to reschedule or whatever. And from a client development standpoint, there's some loss in the number in conversion or new signups that happens sheerly because of the inconvenience of people having to come in or bring documents in. And it can be a huge competitive advantage from a client development standpoint to make this a more efficient, less painful, less annoying process for potential clients. And so again, that's an area where like automation can actually lead to higher conversion rates from inquiries to actual clients.
Yeah, David, are you finding that lawyers are having higher satisfaction ratings and more online reviews because they're using these automated services?
I would love to say yes, but we haven't done any surveys yet. But for me, I'll tell you, it's funny that you mentioned the dentist, because that's how I chose my dentist. I got the automated intake form. I came into the office. They gave me an iPad. They send me SMS alerts and text message reminders about my appointment. So for me, the whole client experience was amazing. And I said, how come my doctor and dentist has these tools, but law firms don't? Law firms do have these tools now. A lot of them just aren't using them. So if you're using these softwares, use these tools. Don't just use 10% of it, because it's all about making an amazing client experience, and you will get more reviews, you will get happier clients, and you will get more clients that will eventually hire you.
So that's how to make your current clients happy or your new clients happy. How do you get more leads? Do you have any advice for getting more feet in the door and more clients in your books?
Oh, I know Gyi and I could talk about this topic forever. So let's see if I could just, speak briefly about it. So I am very similar to Gyi. I'm the online marketing, digital marketing guy. I love it because you can track results. So, I personally hate putting ads in a newspaper or magazine or print ads, because it's really hard to track the results. But if you work in your website a little bit, if you do some Google AdWords and SEO and all these fancy words, you will get results. And if you're working with a company like Attorney Sync, they can prove the results. They can show you the results. Hey, you spent $1,000. This is how many leads we brought on the door. How many did you convert of these? So I love getting more leads from websites. So I can speak quickly about a few small things that most attorneys are doing wrong on their website. So one of the things that I see doing completely wrong, they don't have their phone number anywhere on their website. So put your phone number at the top of your website, put it on the bottom of your website. Just make it easy for people to contact you. The second thing, you might be noticing, if you use Google Analytics, that you get 100, 200, 1,000 people to your website every month. But how many of those people are actually contacting you? Generally, not that many. So why are they not contacting you? Why didn't they ask a question? Why didn't they go with you? You want to find out. So the easiest way to start building a conversation is through installing a live chat feature on your website. So whenever someone comes to your site, the live chat automatically pops up and automatically asks a question. Hey, do you have any questions I can help with? And if they respond, it will go straight to your phone, which you pretty much always have on you today, and you could respond right away from your phone. And if you don't respond, they can leave you a message and you can get back to them later. So that's a very quick tip that people can do easily.
Yeah, I think those are some great points. Some of the things that I would add, is particularly in the context of automation, and this goes back to, obviously, you got, especially if you're just launching, kind of deciding the balance between how much you want to invest in some kind of marketing automation software, but choosing the right marketing automation software can make a big difference in converting a lot of the potential client inquiries from the web, especially in some of the channels that David just mentioned. So I'm going to throw a couple different options out here. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about some of the major quote unquote MarTech offerings and how you might be able to implement them at your law firm. So some of the big names that come to mind, HubSpot, Infusionsoft. If you are a higher volume based practice, those might be worth looking at. They tend to be a little bit more on the expensive side, especially if you're solo small just starting out. But they do give you comprehensive different automations. It's like an all-in-one marketing automation, CRM, but you basically can track from a variety of different campaign sources all the way to fees. You can just search for marketing automation software and they'll look for different reviews, get different feature sets. We'll put some these in the show notes too, but a level down from that, a couple more that I've just like to throw out a nod to. Active Campaign has some good marketing automation features. Recently, we've been looking at Agile CRM, has some interesting features. But again, the balance here is how much are you actually going to commit to implementing these systems? Because they do take time to set up. Most of them require some kind of onboarding learning. But the thing I'll keep saying about all of this stuff is don't get caught up with the shininess of the features. Once you have the implementation in place, make sure that you're quote unquote shopping your own marketing automation system and make sure that it has authenticity. So if it feels like when you sign up, when you download a guide from your site and you're getting these auto respond emails, if it feels too aggressive to you, if it feels too automated to you, you're going to have to find ways to tweak that. But, again, there are some really cheap ways that you kind of hack some of this stuff together. Another thing I would take a look at for automation and connecting different software is Zapier. So Zapier can help. I know there are some firms that I know are relying heavily on Zapier to connect marketing automation with practice management tools or marketing automation to spreadsheets. David mentioned Intake. If you're trying to be frugal and stay really affordable, you can use something like Google Forms with Zapier, and that can take the Google, free Google form, or if you're using Google's G Suite, you can take your form and push it into some kind of practice management tool. But again, the point with all of these things are they're great because they do a lot of the heavy lifting, but you've got to be careful that when you're automating that you still keep that authenticity. It's got to feel natural. It's got to feel real, or else you're going to be spending a lot of time and money sending out emails that are getting unsubscribed to or reported as spam. And you're going to wonder why you've got all this machinery in place that isn't turning into fees.
And I'll just comment on that. So all great programs. I use Zapier, HubSpot, Infusionsoft. So they're amazing programs. They're also quite advanced. So I definitely recommend if you just get lost in it, just speak to a consultant, speak to an expert. The good news is that you can pay someone one time to set it up and then forget about it. Set it and forget it. Or set it and optimize it continually. Always want to be optimizing as much as possible.
Yeah, and you might find that a lot of lawyers, again, we've experienced this ourselves, you might find that a more basic marketing automation system is right for you. I mean, again, in some ways, MailChimp is a marketing automation system because you can do triggers based on website visits and dates, and that might be enough for you. So if you're just getting started with this and you don't want to go crazy with $800 a month software, think about looking at MailChimp, look at their automation options. It can fire off emails on certain dates, so birthdays, holidays, I think we mentioned. It can also integrate with your website. So when visitors come back to your site, you can do delays where it's like, if someone comes back to your site, maybe after a day, it triggers to send an email off saying, hey, just checking in. Again, the other side of the, part of the authenticity question is that creepiness factor. So if you set it up so every time someone comes to your site that you fire an email off, get ready to have people be like, whoa, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, making
Yeah.
people uncomfortable, never a good idea. Any last bits of advice on marketing or automation?
Yeah. So let's see. So I know Gyi would probably agree with me. If you want to get more traffic to your site, which will hopefully convert to more leads, you need to be blogging a lot. Blogging correctly though. So we can't get into how to blog correctly. It's in the book, but the more blog posts you do correctly, the more traffic you will get to your site, which will hopefully get you more people in the door to your law firms. That's one. Another quick one you can do, claim your Google business listing. So, when you're searching for personal injury attorney in Miami, Florida, you'll have 3 results on the top of Google with a map. In order for your law firm to be there, you need to go to google.com/business and claim your free listing. Now, you also want to claim your listing on all the major directories like Avvo and FindLaw, because when someone's searching for a PI attorney in Miami, Florida, they're going to click on the top 10 results of Google. And if Avvo is number 1, you better be at the top of that Avvo listing. You could pay to be up there. You can get more reviews, which will bump you up there. But you always want to be everywhere at the top of every listing. So when a client's looking online for a law firm and you're always the top of every list on the top 10 of Google, they're going to hire you.
So does that mean you should call your firm Aardvark Firm to have 2 A's so you're on the top?
Yeah, I wish. If it was that easy, everyone would be doing it.
Good point. So David, what can people come to Practice Panther to get?
I guess the question is what is practice management? How can it help you? How can it help automate your firm? What are some of the things that it help you with? So the funny thing is we were building another software, actually, a CRM software. And we ended up, me and my partner, who is the co-founder and also the chief developer, we ended up getting married to 2 attorneys. And while we're building the software, our wives were complaining, oh, our software's terrible, the server went down, this crashed, that crashed. And we realized we have to solve this problem for them and for other attorneys. So a lot of attorneys are doing things manually. You are tracking time on pen and paper. You are sending out invoices in Microsoft Word. You are manually calling to follow up. So these are all the problems that lawyers are having today. You're missing deadlines. You're getting bar complaints. So with a practice management software, you will be a lot more organized. You will automate your firm and you will save a ton of time doing these mundane tasks. Whenever I ask an attorney, how long does it take you to bill your clients every month? How long? You mean how many days? 1, 2 days, a whole weekend? It's crazy. And then I ask him, how much money did you make last month? How much profit? I don't know. Okay, how much money do you have in your trust account for every client? I have it in Excel somewhere. So with the software, you'll be able to track all this. You'll be able to grow a lot faster. You'll be able to collaborate and communicate better with your clients and with your internal staff. It just helps automate everything. So it's so hard because once an attorney sees it and does it for the first time, they're like, wow, how much time do I have anymore? I have so much time. I can go home early. I can have dinner with my family. And that's really what a practice management software is all about, saving time and making more money and automating your firm.
I love that. So everyone, if you are at Techshow and want to look into a new practice management software, I definitely recommend speaking with David and talking to Practice Panther. If you are looking for SEO or marketing assistance, stop by the very first Attorney Sync trade show booth.
Woo!
And we would be so happy to help talk you through what your website can do.
I just want to add to that, guys, because it's one thing for you to tell people that you're good at SEO, but it's another thing. I've known Gyi for a few years already, I think 4 years, and every time I talk to him at the show, he is so knowledgeable. I mean, I know a lot about this, so when I talk to someone who also knows a lot, I'm like, you know your stuff. So if anyone's ever hesitating to hire Gyi, he knows his stuff, and he's such a good guy and honest and trustworthy. So I want to throw it out there because I know it's different when you say it, but I'm telling everyone they are the real deal.
Thank you for your kind words, and I'll be giving your envelope full of cash to you next week. But seriously,
my referral fees.
Yeah, thanks so much for spending the time with us today, David. Great catching up with you. Really looking forward to checking out this new book. And again, listeners, as always, if you've got ideas, feedback, suggestions, show topics, you want to be a guest, we'd love to have you. We're really excited to have experienced both, people in legal tech, legal marketing, as well as practicing attorneys on to discuss what's working for client development.